On March 16, 1968, the 11th Brigade of the U.S. Army entered My Lai and slaughtered its women and children. This created conflicting emotions among the Americans who heard because it was an obvious and cruel mistreatment of innocent Vietnamese. This divided Americans as many did not agree with the event. In 1969, President Nixon instituted a policy called Vietnamization. It meant gradually turning the war over to the South Vietnamese. He wanted to end American involvement in the war, but with the U.S.'s honor still intact. In 1970, the U.S. invaded Cambodia to eliminate Viet Congs and help build up the Southern military in preparation for U.S. withdrawal. This event was controversial because South Vietnam was being left alone to protect itself against communism.
Richard Nixon tried to appeal to a silent majority so they would support his war policies, such as the invasion of Cambodia. He did this in his address to the nation, more commonly known as his silent majority speech. In his speech, Nixon calls for the support of Americans so he can fulfill his promise to end the war in Vietnam. He says, the more Americans were divided at home, the less likely the enemy would negotiate in Paris.
Containment was a strategic foreign policy which was put in place to prevent the expansion of the Soviet Union. Truman's Doctrine of 1947 was the first application of containment, which gave immediate economic and military aid to Greece and Turkey. Truman believed that this aid would prove that capitalism was reliable, and therefore Greece and Turkey would not turn to communism as a last resort. Truman's doctrine was a stepping stone of containing communism. Containment was put into full effect when President Johnson decided to contain communism in Vietnam, beginning the Vietnam War. The domino theory was a foreign policy speculated in the 1950s and 1980s. The domino theory stated that a small change in one region had the ability to cause the same change in neighboring regions. This was applied to the economic change to communism, believing that if one land was taken by communism, neighboring lands would also be taken by communism.
2 days later, the Maddox and another destroyer were again off the North Vietnamese coast. The crew of the Maddox later declared, however, that they had neither seen nor heard hostile gunfire. Congress approved Johnson's request with only 2 senators voting against it and adopted the Tonkin Gulf Resolution on August 7th. While not a declaration of war, it granted Johnson broad military powers in Vietnam.
this radio and television time tonight for the purpose of announcing that we today have concluded an agreement to end the war and bring peace with honor in Vietnam.
Prior to May 5, 1968, Nixon spoke of seeking a victorious peace in Vietnam. But on that day, speaking in New Hampshire, the nation's first primary state, he used the term honorable peace for the first time. Crucial to his plan was the concept of linkage, using the Soviet Union to get the North Vietnamese to negotiate seriously. With this objective, and even as the pullout began, Nixon secretly ordered a controversial, massive bombing campaign against supply routes and bases in North Vietnam. He wanted the enemy to believe he was capable of anything.
The United States and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam express the hope that this agreement will ensure stable peace in Vietnam and contribute to the preservation of lasting peace in Indochina and Southeast Asia. That concludes the formal statement. Throughout the years of negotiations, we have insisted on peace with honor. In my addresses to the nation from this room of January 25th and May 8th, I set forth the goals that we considered essential for peace with honor.
The Vietnam conflict was controversial due to government policies from Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon. Eisenhower explained the domino theory and decided that it was in America's best interest to aid the French. Kennedy saw containment as the top priority, even if it meant America had to give out aid to other countries or support a dictator like Diem. Johnson's Tonkin Gulf Resolution eventually reopened the draft and brought hundreds of thousands of American soldiers to the front lines in South Vietnam, creating an uproar at home. Nixon's Vietnamization aimed to end the war by achieving peace with honor. His attempts to appeal to his silent majority only further divided the country's views on war.
1, 2, 3, 4!
I've got my 40 nukes in Vietnam to overthrow. Know what to worry about and know where to go. I traded in their hearts and minds for Agent Orange. I'm contemplating surrender, but can't tell our soldiers. Who needs commies? Not me. Who needs Vietnam? I got me. Who needs capitalism? Me. Who needs war? I got me. I've got my peace treaty and front row seats to the Geneva Convention. I'm on the corner now, watching them make nuclear weapons. I traded all my pain for all your priceless pillow talk.